The bride was walking back down the main street alone in the white wedding dress she had worn for 40 minutes when the man stepped down off the boardwalk in front of the feed store and fell into step beside her without saying a thing. And Hattie Quinn did not break her stride. She had not broken her stride at the chapel either, when the deacon had read the letter aloud at the altar in the careful voice of a man who had been handed the letter at the chapel door at 1:45 by a boy on a borrowed horse, and which had said in plain terms that Mr. Wendell Carr regretted that he could not be at the wedding at 2, and could not, in good conscience, be at any wedding to her at any other hour, and he wished her well. She had walked out of the chapel at 2:05. She had walked down the chapel steps at 6 past. She had walked out the chapel yard at 7 past. She had been walking the half-mile back down the main street alone in the white wedding dress for the 8 minutes since. The man stepped off the boardwalk in front of the feed store at 2:15. He did not take her elbow. He did not slow her stride. He did not look at her face. Before we continue, if stories like this mean something to you, hit subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. She did not look at him either. They walked the next 30 paces down the bleached pale tan dust of the main street in silence, in the hard, white midday glare of an August Saturday, in plain sight of the dry goods and the feed store and the smithy and the sheriff's office and the small open window of the seamstress at the south end, the small open window of which had every head in the town pressed against it by the time they had passed the second false front. The man was a half-pace to her left and a half-pace behind, the way a man walks beside a woman whose pace he has decided to match and whose ground he has decided not to crowd. At the corner of the south end of the main street, where the road bent into the lane that led out to the section her father had left her, she stopped. She looked at him. He was 34, broad in the shoulder, lean across the chest, a clean, faded blue chambray work shirt with the sleeves rolled past the elbow, dark trousers worn at the knee, scuffed brown leather work boots dusty along the toe, a clean brown felt hat held off his head now in his right hand at his side. He had a steady gray eye and a sun-darkened, weathered face and a small line of pale sawdust at the rolled cuff of his right sleeve from the morning's work. He had not spoken yet. Mr. Owen Slate, ma'am. Mr. Slate. Miss Quinn. You stepped off the boardwalk in front of the feed store and you fell into step beside me without saying a thing. I did. You walked me 30 paces down the main street in plain sight of every false front on the street. I did. Why? He looked at the brim of his hat in his hand. He looked at the cottonwoods at the lane just past her shoulder, just starting to gold at the tips. He looked back at her. I have lived at the edge of this town 9 years. I have not made a study of the matter of who is being married to whom on a given Saturday. I came into the feed store for nails this morning at 1:15. I was at the counter at the feed store at 2:05 when the boy on the borrowed horse came in to tell Henley the deacon had read the letter at the chapel. I heard the boy at the counter at 2:05. I paid the freight for the nails at the counter at 7 past. I stepped out of the feed store at 1:15. You came down the boardwalk on the other side of the street at 1:15. I crossed the street at 1:15. I have stepped off the boardwalk in front of the feed store, Miss Quinn, because the alternative this afternoon, by what I can see, is that a woman in a white dress in the white midday sun walks the half-mile back to her own gate alone, with the south end of the main street counting her steps. I am not asking past the half-mile. I am walking the half-mile. That is the why. She looked at him. She did not let her hands fidget. She had not let her hands fidget the whole 8 minutes from the chapel either, because she had trained that out of herself a long time ago when she had understood that stillness reads as competence whether or not you feel it. "The half-mile," she said. "The half-mile, Mr. Slate." He put his hat on. He fell back into step beside her at the same half-pace to her left and the same half-pace behind, and Hattie Quinn walked the rest of the half-mile out on the South Road in the white wedding dress in the hard, white, midday glare of the August Saturday, with Owen Slate walking the half-pace to her left and the half-pace behind, and the cottonwoods at the lane shifted in the smallest breath of dry afternoon air, and the warm, pale-tan dust of the road settled slow behind them, and the small open window of the seamstress at the south end stayed open until the two of them had turned at the bend of the lane and disappeared from sight. At the gate of her father's small, low pine plank house at the end of the lane, she stopped again. "This is my gate. I know it. You will not enter. I will not. You will turn around. I will." She looked at him. "Mr. Slate?" "Yes. Why did you not look at my face on the main street?" He thought about it. A woman who has been walked half a mile back from a chapel she is not married at, in a dress she is not married in, has had enough of being looked at on the main street to last her a year. I figured the lookin' was a thing she did not need a stranger to add to. The lookin' was a thing she could choose for herself when we reached the gate. I figured you would either look at me at the gate or you would not, and I would walk the half-mile back to the feed store either way. She looked at her hands. "I am looking at you, Mr. Slate. I know it." She did not say more than that. He did not ask her to. He took his hat off again. He held it in both hands at his chest. "Miss Quinn." "Yes, I am at the small section at the east edge of town. The lane to the section comes off the main street at the smithy. If at any point in the next week or in the next month or in the next year you have a thing on your section that wants a hand, you will send word to the smithy, and I will come up. I am not asking past that. I am asking you to know it." She nodded once. He put the hat back on. He turned. He walked back down the lane at the same unhurried pace he had walked her out on, the warm afternoon dust just beginning to rise behind him. And Hattie Quinn stood at her own gate in the white wedding dress and watched him until the dust at the bend of the lane had settled. She went inside. She closed the door. She did not let her face do anything until the door was closed. She took the dress off in the small back room at 4. She folded it on the worn pine chest at the foot of her bed. She put on a faded pale blue work dress and a worn cream apron. She went out to the small kitchen garden along the south wall of the section, and she thinned the row of carrot tops she had been meaning to thin for 3 days, and she did the math of the section in her head while she thinned, and the math of the section was the math she had been doing for 2 months. Her father had left her the section and the bay mare in the corral and the small kitchen garden and a note at the bank for $48 due on the 1st of October, which had been 6 weeks away when the letter had been read at the altar at 2:05 on the Saturday. She had been 27 the previous March. She had answered the advertisement for Mr. Wendell Carr in April, because Mr. Wendell Carr had owned a freight house at the crossroads and would have paid the note. She had not loved Mr. Wendell Carr. She had not pretended to. She had been ready, on the morning of the Saturday, to be at the altar at 2 and to marry a freight housekeeper she did not love, because the freight housekeeper would pay the note on the 1st of October. The letter at the chapel had cost her the freight housekeeper. The note on the 1st of October had not been canceled by the letter. She thinned the row. The cottonwoods at the lane went on shifting in the warm afternoon air. The bay mare at the corral shifted once and was quiet. She did not weep. She had not yet decided whether she was the kind of woman who would weep on this particular Saturday, and she would not commit to the decision in the kitchen garden of her own section in the heat of an August afternoon, when she had not yet decided what she would say to the bank on the Monday. Owen Slate came up the lane the following Saturday at noon. He came on foot. He came with a small canvas tool roll under his right arm and a clean brown felt hat on his head. He did not enter the gate. He stopped at the warped pickets, and he stood with his hands resting easy on the top rail. Miss Quinn. She came out to the porch step with her chapped, sun-darkened hands resting on her cream apron and her dark hair pinned back simply with one strand loose at her temple. Mr. Slate, I have come up because I figured a Saturday at noon was the hour I had walked you on a week ago, and that the lane to your gate was the lane I had walked on a week ago, and I figured if I came up at the same hour on the same lane on a different Saturday with a tool roll under my arm, I would either find you at the porch step with a list of work for me, or I would find you at the porch step with no list. I have brought the tool roll for the first thing on the list if you have a list. I have not brought it for the second possibility. I am not asking past the list. If there is no list, I will turn around at the gate the same way I turned around a week ago, and I will not come up this lane on a Saturday at noon again until you have sent word to the smithy that you have a list ready. Hattie Quinn looked at him. She looked at her hands on the cream apron. I have a list, she said. That suits. She went inside. She came back out with a folded paper. She came down the path to the gate. She handed it to him over the warped pickets. He read it, standing at the gate. 4 items. The corral wanted 3 rails replaced. The pump at the back step ran brown in the morning and wanted a new gasket. The kitchen window sash had warped and would not shut against the weather. The wagon tongue was cracked at the brace. I can do the corral rails, the pump, and the sash between now and the 1st of October. The wagon tongue I cannot do at the section. I will take it to the smith in town on a Thursday at noon, and I will pay the smith out of my own pocket, and you will not pay me back for the wagon tongue. You will pay me for the other 3 at the end of the work at the rate of $1 a day, 3 days of work, $3 total, which you will pay me in eggs if you have eggs, or in butter, or in a cup of coffee at your kitchen table at the end of each day's work, which is the way a person pays a hand at a section in the country I have lived in for 9 years. You will not pay me in coin. You will sign the paper at the bottom. She read the items. He had read them in the order she had written them. He had not added or subtracted. He had named what he could do and what he could not. He had named the price in eggs and butter and coffee and not in coin. He had named coin as the one thing he would not take. She took out the small pencil she had carried in her sleeve. She wrote the agreement under his terms in her own hand. She signed at the bottom. He signed beside her. He folded the paper. He handed it back over the gate to her. You will keep this. I will. He came on the Tuesday after with the rails. He worked at the corral from 1 to 4. He did not enter the kitchen for the noon meal. He ate his noon meal at the corral with the bay mare watching him. Hattie Quinn carried out a tin cup of well water on a tin plate, with a slice of fresh bread on the plate beside the cup, and Owen Slate ate the bread and drank the cup of water at the corral with the bay mare watching him, and he set the empty cup on the corral post when he had finished, and he went back to work. He was gone by 4:30. He came on the Thursday. He came on the Tuesday after. He came on the Thursday after. The slow geographical shift was in the cup. The first Tuesday she had carried it out to the corral. By the second Thursday, she had set the cup at the porch step at 1, and he had come up the path to the porch step and taken it from the step and drunk it at the corral. By the third Tuesday, he was drinking the cup of water at the porch step itself, standing on the second tread with his boot on the bottom step. By the fourth, he was sitting on the bottom step with the cup beside him while he ate the bread, and the bay mare in the corral had gotten used to him, and Hattie Quinn had brought a second cup of water out at 1:30 when the first was finished, and Owen Slate had not entered the kitchen, and Hattie Quinn had not yet asked him to. In the second week of September, the town came to her. The dry goods at the south end of the main street was kept by Mrs. Letty Hawes, who was 56 and the wife of the dry goods merchant, and had a straight back and a careful voice, and had been at the seamstress's open window at the south end of the main street the previous month, and had not yet been able to find an occasion to deliver the speech she had prepared that afternoon. Hattie Quinn came in on the Wednesday morning to buy a pound of nails and a tin of lamp oil. Letty Hawes was at the counter. "Miss Quinn, Mrs. Hawes. I have been hearing—" "I am sure you have, Mrs. Hawes." Letty Hawes set both hands flat on the counter. "I have heard from the seamstress and from the postmistress and from a woman at the freight house. I have heard that you have had Mr. Owen Slate up at your section every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 4 weeks. I have heard that he has been at your porch step. I have heard that he eats his noon meal at your corral and drinks his cup of water at your porch step. I've heard that the cup of water has moved over the 4 weeks from the corral to the porch step. I've heard that the agreement is for him to be at the section through the 1st of October. Mrs. Hawes. Yes, the agreement is on paper. The paper names the work. The paper names the rate. The paper is signed. The paper is in the small tin box on the shelf above my stove. I will show you the paper at any hour you ride up the lane and ask to see it. I will not ride into town with the paper to show you in the dry goods, because the paper is the business of my section, and the dry goods is not the business of my section. You will not ask me about the paper at this counter again, Mrs. Hawes. You will ask any other question at this counter you would like to ask of a customer at a dry goods, and I will answer it the way a customer at a dry goods answers a merchant's wife. The pound of nails and the tin of lamp oil, please." Letty Hawes did not move for one long breath. She sold Hattie Quinn the pound of nails and the tin of lamp oil. She did not look at Hattie when she rang it up. She wrapped the lamp oil in a paper sack. At the door, Letty Hawes said one thing, in a voice she did not raise. "Miss Quinn." "Yes, Mrs. Hawes." A man who walks half a mile beside a bride in the plain sight of the south end of the main street and does not take her elbow is not a man who's going to ride out of town in the autumn. Hattie Quinn looked at her. "That is the most useful sentence you have said at this counter, Mrs. Hawes. I will see you Wednesday next." She walked out to the wagon. The confrontation came on the last Thursday of September at noon at the gate. The man who came up the lane was Mr. Wendell Carr. He came alone, on a tall sorrel mare, in a clean coat that had been brushed since the morning of the Saturday in August, and a new hat. He came at noon because the noon hour was the hour the noon meal was being eaten, and because Wendell Carr was a man who chose his hour for an arrival the way he chose his hat. He stopped at the gate. Owen Slate was at the corral with the last of the 3 new rails. Hattie Quinn was on the porch step shelling beans into a bowl. Wendell Carr took his new hat off. "Miss Quinn." She did not stand up. She set the bowl on the porch step beside her. "Mr. Carr, I've come a long way to find you. You came 11 miles from the crossroads, Mr. Carr. You came in October because the freight house is at the start of its busy season and you're figuring you will be short a wife at the freight house through the winter. You came at noon because you would like to be looked at by Mr. Slate at the corral. You have not come a long way. You have come the way that suits you." Mr. Carr's smile did not change. "Miss Quinn, I have come because I had a thing to think over after the August Saturday, and I have thought it over. You wrote a letter to my chapel that the deacon read at 2:05. I did. You said you could not, in good conscience, be at any wedding to me at any other hour. I did. You have come up my lane on the last Thursday of September to tell me that you have, in good conscience, decided that the other hour is a thing you can after all be at. I have." She did not let her face do anything. Owen Slate did not move from the corral. He had set the last rail in. He had his hands resting easy on the top rail. Mr. Carr stepped through the gate. Hattie Quinn stood up from the porch step. She did not pick up the bowl. "Mr. Carr, you will not enter my path." He stopped. Owen Slate spoke from the corral. "Mr. Carr." Carr turned. "Mr. Carr," Owen Slate said, "Miss Quinn has told you what she has told you. I have nothing to say to it. The mare you came in on is at her gate. You will get back on the mare, and you will ride her back to the crossroads, and you will not come back up this lane. If you come back up this lane, I will not meet you with a rifle. I will not meet you with my voice. I will meet you with the sheriff in town, who is a fair man, and you will pay the note on Miss Quinn's section to the bank on the 1st of October before you take another freight wagon anywhere out of the crossroads. The note is for $48. You owe it because you took a wife at 2:05 on an August Saturday by writing a letter to a chapel and a woman, and a wife who was about to pay a note at a bank on the 1st of October was the wife you took, and you do not get to take her wedding and not take her note. That is what I have to say. That is all I have to say." He did not raise his voice. He did not move from the corral. The corner of his mouth did not move. Wendell Carr looked at Hattie. He looked at Owen Slate. He put his new hat on. He turned. He got back on the sorrel mare. He rode out down the lane at a walk. The dust at the gate settled slow. Hattie Quinn did not pick the bowl back up yet. She looked at her hands on the apron. Owen Slate came up the path. He stood at the porch step. He took his hat off. "That was hard," he said. "It was. I have not said as many words in a noon hour in 9 years. I know it." He sat down on the bottom step. He picked up a bean from the bowl. He shelled it. He set it in the bowl. He did not look at her. "Miss Quinn." "Yes. The note on the 1st of October is $48. "It is. I have $32 and a 10 on the shelf above my kitchen block." He did not look at her. "I have not asked you what I would like to ask you. I have been thinking on it since the August Saturday. I have not asked because the agreement is the agreement, and the corral is the corral, and I would not have you decide a thing under either roof until you had decided you wanted to. I am asking now because the note is the note, and the 1st of October is the 1st of October, and I would have you know what I have in the tin before I have you decide a thing about anything else." He stopped. He looked at her. Hattie Quinn looked at the bowl of beans. She looked at her hands on the apron. She looked at the cottonwoods at the lane just going gold at the tips, and at the corral with the 3 new pine rails bright pale against the silvered weathered wood, and at the worn weather-silvered porch step beneath her boots, and at the man at the bottom step with his hat in his hand. Mr. Slate. "Yes. The note is $48. You have 32 in your tin. I have 16 in a small leather purse in the tin box on the shelf above my stove, which is the last of the coin my father left in the till, which I had been saving against a Tuesday I could not yet name. 48 is the sum of those two. He did not move. I'm not asking you to pay the note for me, Mr. Slate. I'm asking you to put your 32 in the same envelope as my 16 on the Monday morning at the bank, and to walk into the bank with me at 9, and to sign your name beside mine on the receipt, and to walk out of the bank with me at 9:15, and to come back up this lane with me in the wagon at 1/2 past, and to sit at the kitchen table at noon dinner at the chair I have set at the near end on the right, which is the chair my father sat in for 40 years, and which has been empty for 2, and which I have not had a man sit in. That is what I am asking." She looked at him. "I am asking it plain." Owen Slate set the bean down in the bowl. He looked at her. "That suits," he said. He did not say more than that. She did not ask him to. They went to the bank on the Monday morning at 9. They walked out at 1/4 past. They came back up the lane at 1/2 past. He sat at the chair at the near end on the right at noon dinner. They were married at the small white-painted clapboard chapel at the crossroads on a clear, cool Sunday afternoon in the second week of October, with the cottonwoods at the lane all the way gold and the warm dust of the late season settled on the road. Mrs. Letty Hawes sat in the third pew and bowed her head once at the end. The deacon, who was the same deacon who had read the letter at 2:05 on the August Saturday, performed the service in the same careful voice he had read the letter in, and afterward shook Owen Slate's hand at the chapel step and said, "Plain, I had hoped this would be how the August Saturday ended." They drove back to the section in the wagon. The note had been paid by the receipt in the small tin box on the shelf above the stove for 9 days by then. The chair at the near end on the right stayed Owen Slate's chair. The white dress that Hattie Quinn had worn for 40 minutes in August stayed folded on the worn pine chest at the foot of her bed for the rest of her life, in the way of dresses that have been worn for a short time and remembered for longer, and the way she remembered it was not the way the town remembered the August Saturday, because by the 2nd October the town had remembered something else about the August Saturday, which was the half-mile on the main street and the man at the corral, and the half-pace to her left and the half-pace behind. This was the story of Hattie Quinn and Owen Slate, the bride who walked the half-mile home alone, and the quiet man at the edge of town who fell into step beside her without taking her elbow. Tell me in the comments if you enjoyed this one. We are always glad you came to listen.